Welcome to Ruhoni Sewing. My name is Ruth, and today we will have a tutorial on how to draft front bodice pattern. For a tutorial on the back bodice pattern, I have linked that video in the description box below. Please let us start. These are the materials which are going to be needed. We have our square ruler, the pair of scissors, our straight ruler, rubber, our curved ruler, pencil, tape measure, as well as our pattern paper. Listed on the screen are the measurements that we are going to use. We need a shoulder length measurement, bust, shoulder to waist, chest, waist, and hip. But we are also going to use standard measurement for the neckline as well as for the distance between breasts, that is apex to apex measurement. Remember to leave a space of 0.5 inches at the top of your pattern paper as well as at the sides. Now let us start to draft our pattern. From the intersection, measure 3 inches width and 3 inches of length. These are the standard measurements for the front neckline. Make sure that all sides are equal. And with your with your ruler, join these 4 points and label them as A, B, C, and D. With your curved ruler, draw the neckline. If you don't have a curved ruler, you can draw freely by hand. From A, measure half of the shoulder length measurement. Mine is 7.5, and label that point as E. Then square down from E. Measure 1 inch downwards from E and label that point as F. Then with your ruler, connect point F to point B exactly as shown here. Now let us start with our vertical measurements. From point A, measure 1/6 of your bust measurement. Mine is 6.5. Then add 2 inches. That will give you 8.5. Label this point here as G. With your square ruler, square across from G. And label that line as your bust line. Now divide the distance of A to G by 2. Remember it was 8.5, so half of it is 4.25. Label that point as H. Again, square across from H. And label that line as your chest line. To get your waistline, measure from A, a distance of waist to shoulder measurement. Mine is 18 inches. Label that point as K. Then again, as you did with your chest and bust line, square across from K. And label that line as your waistline. From your waistline, measure 8 inches downwards. This is a standard measurement or distance between the waist and the hip line. Label that point there as L. Then square across from L. And label that line as your hip line. Now, let us start with horizontal measurements. On the chest line, measure half of the chest measurement. Mine is 7, but the front pattern is bigger than the back, so we are going to add 0.25 inches. And label that point as M. Square down from point M to the bust line and label the point on the bust line as N. On the bust line, measure quarter of the bust measurement. Mine is 9.75. And because it's a front pattern, we are going to add 0.25 inches. And then we will add 0.5 inches of an ease. Label that point as O. Now connect point F, M, and O. First connect F and M with a slightly curved line. Then connect M and O with a deep curve. On the waistline, divide waist measurement by 4. I have 8.5. Again, I'm going to add 0.25 because it's a front pattern. Then we will add 1 inch of that and 0.25 inches of seam allowance or ease. Label that point as P. Now, finishing with our hip line, we are going to measure quarter of the hip measurement. Mine is 11 inches. But we are going only to add 0.25 inch as ease allowance. Label that point as Q. Now connect point P from your bust, O from your waist, and Q from your hip line with a ruler. First start with O and P, and then P and Q as shown here. With your curved ruler, smooth the line at the waist to avoid sharp corners. Now let us start to draw our waist dart. On the bust line, measure half of the apex to apex measurement, which is 8 inches, so half of it is 4 inches. Label that point as R, and then square down all the way to the hip line. Here I'm using dotted lines, but you can draw a straight line if you wish. Label the point on the waistline as S, and that on the hip line as T. Then from R, measure 1.5 inches downwards. This is your bust point. And from your bust point, measure 1 inch going down and label that point as W. Remember, on the waistline we left 1 inch for that. So on either side of this dotted line, measure 0.5 inches. Then connect these points on the waistline to point W as shown here. From point S on the waistline, measure 5 inches down and label as point X. Again, connect point X to the points on the waistline. Now moving to our side seam dart. This dart is made as a difference between the side seam of the front and that of the back. This is the back bodice pattern and this is our front bodice pattern. If you look at the side seam of the front and the back, that of the back is shorter. Measure the side seam of the front, which is 9.5 inches, and the side seam of the back is 6.5 inches. Measure 3 inches downwards. This will be the center of your side dart. Join this side center to the bust point. Then on this line from your bust point, measure 1 inch and put a mark. Now on the side seam, on either side of this line, measure 1.5 inches. Remember, the difference between the side seam of the front and back was 3 inches. Now, to make a dart, join these points on the side seam as shown here. Label your pattern, the center front line. Show the direction of the grain line. And label your pattern as front. With a pair of paper scissors, start to cut your pattern. Thank you very much for watching.